Hey everyone, it's Steve here from CG Geek, back with part 5 to our modern interior tutorial series in Blender. In this part we're going to be doing the sculpting, so we're going to be creating the couch and cushions in the scene to finish it off and pretty much finish the modeling in the project. Okay, so we'll start with the couch. We just need to add in the base model before we can start sculpting. So I'm just going to place my cursor in the general area that I want the couch. I'm going to go Shift A, and I'm going to add in a cube. With that cube placed, I can hit period on my number pad to zoom in on that cube and focus my view around it. Alright, so we're going to have to kind of hide some of the objects in the way here, just so we're not going to be distracted by these things. So I'm just going to hit B, box selects it all, leave the main walls, and then hit H and hide them. So we have some more room around here to kind of work. Okay, so now I'm going to tab into edit mode, hold Control, and pull the cube up to the surface. So we click once up, and now we're sitting on the floor. Okay, now I'm going to scale it down along the Z axis a bit, so S and Z, just to be around the middle area here, a little bit below halfway to the shelf, I would say. And I'm going to pull it over to be right along the edge here. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and scale it along the Shift Z axis. So we're scaling it wider, but not taller. Right around there looks to be about right. I can move it over a little bit more now. And we have a pretty good box shape. Maybe scale it a little bit more along the Z axis there. Okay, and now I'm going to go Control R, add in a cut horizontally here, and pull it back a ways, just about there. So I can grab that top face here and extrude up the back of the seat. Now this is going to come about 5/8, just a small distance from the shelf there. I'm not going to get real picky with measurements, but somewhere around there should be about right. And that's looking to be pretty good. Actually, I think our base could be a little higher, so we can grab that face and these vertices around the edge here. So I'm going to grab those two here and then this face right there, and then these two vertices, and we'll pull them up a little bit. So we have a little bit of a taller couch, and the backrest is a little shorter than the height of the couch, and that's looking to be pretty good. Now I'm going to put just a few more loop cuts in here. I'm going to put one this ways, so I can kind of pull these two vertices out a bit, and these two vertices in a bit, just to get the real rough shape in our model. I'm going to grab these and pull them down a bit more, actually. Something like that. We do not need proportional editing on, so I can turn that off. Okay, and that's looking about right. And then I'm going to grab the bottom faces here and actually lift them off the ground a bit, because it doesn't sit completely flat on the ground. There's kind of another surface that sits on. So something like that. And now we're going to go ahead and give it a little bit more detail. So first I'm going to scale it along the Shift Z a little bit more just to make it slightly bigger. So we're about back to the wall there. Something like that. Looks to be good. And now I'm going to give it two more edge loops along here and along here to give it kind of the creases you see in a couch. So these are kind of like the seams where the fabric meets. So I'm going to go Control R. I'm going to go two cuts. So right on both sides there. And I'm going to click twice to apply them. And now I want to cut on each side here. So I'm going to put a cut right there, and then a cut right there. Zoom in, and you can see that they're pretty close. So you can drag them a little bit more if you didn't get it exactly right. And then over here as well, Control R and Control R. All right. This one might be a little far out, so I'm going to go Alt, right-click, grab that edge loop, pull it in a little bit more. And it doesn't have to be perfect. That's pretty good. Now I'm going to grab those inner edge loops on both sides, and I'm going to scale them along the Shift X or Shift Y axis. So they're going in. Well, actually I'm going to scale them along the Y axis a bit. You know what? Actually, I'll just change that. I'm just going to scale them individually because this will give it the best scale. So I'm going to grab that and I'm going to go S and scale it in a little bit. Looks good. Maybe scale on the Z just a little bit as well. Okay, and then do the same thing with this one. Trying to do them at the same time will end up kind of messing up your geometry a little bit, and it's just easier to do them separately in this case. Alright, so scale them down along the Z a little bit, and that looks pretty good. I think this one could be scaled a little bit more along the Z axis. Alright, so if you kind of go from the edge here by hitting number pad 1, you can see that that's looking good and that's looking good, except on top it's coming out a little too much. So I want to unselect these vertices here, grab those, unselect them. Okay, and let's grab this one too, because we can fix both these at the same time. I just want these bottom edges here, so I'm just going to grab both those, pull them down, and then these top ones here as well. Grab those, pull them up. Okay, and then these two in here also need to be set back a little bit. Like so. And maybe pulled up a little bit as well. Alright, that looks pretty good. So we have our edges cut into here, and we're ready to start sculpting. So I'm going to put one more edge loop along here, just to have a little bit more geometry, kind of boxing it off. And that should do it. Maybe one more edge loop here, here, and here. Just a little bit more detail to kind of work with in the sculpting. And I guess we could put one here as well. But now we're going to be using a multi-res modifier. So go ahead and add the multi-resolution modifier to your couch. We're going to subdivide it at least 4 times, maybe 5. I'll go ahead and go 5. And I'll choose smooth shading. Whoops, make sure you have the right object selected for that. Okay, so now we have our couch, and it looks a little little rounded, so we're going to have to do some sculpting now. I'm also going to add an array modifier, and I'm going to change it to be along the negative y here, and I'll change this to 0. I believe this is the y. Yeah. So change it to something like -1 or just under, so negative 0.98 maybe, so they're a little tighter there. I'm going to have it to be 3. So this is going to be the length of the couch, and I can kind of center it here along the shelf. And that's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and hide our TV entertainment center there. And now what we have to do is we have to sculpt. So I'm going to switch from object mode over to sculpt mode. And you can see the array modifier is invisible, but that's fine. We can tab in and out when we want to see how it's looking as an array. And now is when we get into the sculpting settings a little bit, and it's going to be really important to kind of get the hang of the different shortcut keys for the different sculpting brushes, because you'll be able to switch between them so much quicker and get so much more work done if you know the shortcut keys for the brushes. Okay, so first off, the Sculpt Draw is going to be kind of your main brush. This is for basically drawing any sort of crease or shape that you want on your mesh, and to get to this, it's XX on your keyboard. So if I switch to a different brush, say clay for example, I can hit X and I'll be back to it. I guess it's just X once. So X on your keyboard for the Sculpt Draw. And then Smooth is another one you'll be using pretty often, and that is S. And then Crease is another one you'll be using, but C takes you to clay, so it's Shift C to get to Crease. And then another one I like to use is Pinch, so it's P on your keyboard to bring up Pinch. And those are kind of the basics that you're going to use. I also use the Flatten one, and I'm guessing that is, okay. I'm not sure what the shortcut key is actually on that one, but I use that occasionally. And then the other keys to learn are going to be the size of your brush and the strength. So F is going to change the radius of your brush, and Shift F is going to change the strength of your brush. The smaller, the stronger, the wider, the less strong. So we're going to just leave it at kind of a basic right now, but I want to make my brush bigger, so I'm just going to hit F on my keyboard to make it the size I want. And now I'm just going to do some of the basic sculpting here, and that is kind of squaring off our couch a bit. So I'm going to go ahead and add some geometry down here. And don't worry about like the way it looks right off the bat, because you can come back and pinch and smooth it. So for example, I'll just hit S, and now I can smooth that out and kind of keep it, maybe make the strength a little bit stronger on my smoothing brush. So I'm going to go Shift F, make that a little stronger, and I can kind of smooth that out some more. But you can see that I'm kind of sharpening up the edges here. So I'm just going to hit X again to get back to sculpting. And let's just kind of square up the edges a little bit. You can see I have the modifier, the symmetry here, mirroring it along the X. I don't really want that, but I do want it along the Y. So when I sculpt over here, I'll be doing it over there. So that will make things a little bit easier as well. And so I'm just going to kind of go along and square this off a little bit and then add some of the creases that I want. So right now I'm just kind of doing the basic. I want this to be a little sharper in the front here. Maybe make my brush a little less strong. So I'm going to add some there. Just kind of panning around, seeing what I've got here. Add some along the top. Make that corner a little tighter. Okay. Now I'm going to want to kind of cut back. I'm going to hit 5 on my number pad so I can see a little closer perspective. Now I'm going to kind of cut back in here. So to take away geometry, you hold Control, and then that's going to cut into your mesh. So I want to kind of make it so like there's, let me make that a little bigger. Maybe make my brush a little bigger too. I want to kind of make it like the fabric is kind of sagging a little bit on the cushions back here. So I'm going to kind of cut back here and then add in geometry in the front here. So it's kind of like a saggy cushion right there. Just a bit, not too much. And then we'll smooth that out in a bit. I'm going to go ahead and kind of add some more along here. A little bit on top there is good. We can kind of tighten up this back corner here by adding some geometry there as well. And then this edge there too. Okay, so we have like the base mesh kind of coming along here. Add in some more in there and in there. Now I'm going to go to a little bit of smoothing by hitting S on my keyboard. Kind of smoothing out some of these. You can keep a little bit of the ripples because sometimes that looks good. And just kind of smooth out what doesn't look good. Now I'm going to hit P to kind of pinch in the corners here. That's just going to tighten it up a little bit. A little bit in there, a little bit in there, kind of along the top here, along the edges here. This could still use some more smoothing, so I hit S on my keyboard, and I go to smoothing. And then this never really got tightened up enough back there. Go ahead and tighten that up, and then smooth it out. Okay, and now I want to smooth this a little bit more. Now I want this to be creased a little bit more in here, so I'm going to hit Shift C to go to my crease brush, and continue kind of creasing in here. Maybe make my brush a little stronger and a little smaller. So I can kind of put those fine creases back there. Perfect. All right, I can kind of smooth this out in there. And then hit X twice and kind of continue drawing on here, making these cushions look like they're sagging a little bit more, and also tightening up the corners here. Maybe make this brush a little stronger. Okay. And then smooth it out a bit. Okay, cool. Now another thing we can do is make these creases look a little better by going Shift C, going to our crease brush, and adding a little bit more to them, like so. And the same across here, kind of adding that crease around and down, especially at the bottoms here. And then you can come back with a pinch brush by hitting P, making it a little bigger, and kind of pinching those creases in. Maybe adding a little bit of smoothing here and there. But overall, we're kind of getting the right shape that we're looking for. Now, it's not very close to being done yet, but if I tab into Edit Mode, switch to Object Mode, we can kind of see how it's coming along. And we want to kind of tighten up these corners still, so it looks more like one continuous couch put together in 3 sections. And but yeah, it's kind of coming along nicely. Just needs some more TLC. So I'm going to go back to sculpting mode here. I'm going to kind of go back to my sculpting brush and get more of the basics kind of worked out. Maybe make these cushions a little bit more fuzzy here, and then smooth it out like so. Then double tap X and kind of add in some more back there. Take away in here by holding Control. And then just kind of fill it out and smooth it out. All right, it's looking pretty good. And then over here we need a little bit more still along the edges. And then we can kind of smooth it out. And then pinch it along the corners there just to make it a little bit of a sharper edge. And then maybe pinch it along the back here as well. Also maybe adding in a little bit more geometry along the back here. All right, so we have a little bit more to work with. That looks good. Now we can kind of smooth it and pinch it. All right. And that's looking pretty good. Adding just a little bit more geometry in here with my sculpt brush, and then taking away a little bit in there, and then just kind of smoothing it out, then hitting Shift C, and kind of putting that crease in there again. Making sure that stays there, smooth it out a little bit more, and then maybe we can pinch it in there a little tighter. Yeah, that looks nice. A little bit of pinching. And then along there as well. Alright, so you can see how it's kind of coming along. Not too bad. Kind of smooth those cushions out a little bit. Alright. And we can kind of see now what it's looking like in object mode again. And it's coming along pretty good. We need to work on the corners a little bit here still, but the basic mesh is almost there. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of fill out these cushions a little bit more and work on the little bit more of the finer details now. So I'm going to go back to my sculpt brush here. I'm going to turn the strength down a bit now as we don't need it as much. And I'm just going to add a little bit of poof, you could call it, to these cushions, giving them a little bit more stuffing, you could say. Like so, and like so. This will need to be smoothed out a little bit by hitting S on my keyboard. Smoothing it a bit. And then here as well, go to Sculpt, kind of puff them up a little bit, and then smooth them down. Maybe kind of pinch the corners here a little bit. Alright. Kind of smooth that. Okay, that's, you couldn't really see from the top view, but I ended up giving him a lot of fluffing, a little too much. So I'm just smoothing it down now. All right, a little bit more. It's looking good. And now there's kind of those details where you have like a button that's on these creases, pulling down the seam a little bit there. So that's what I'm going to do now. I'm going to go to my sculpt brush with X. I'm going to make it a little bit smaller. I'm going to hold down Control, so I'm taking away, and I'm going to make a little bit more strength here. And I'm going to kind of start that hole there, starting a little bit wider, and then getting a little bit more intense and smaller, taking away, kind of like you have that pinhole in your couch. Maybe making a little bit of a bigger overall then, kind of smoothing it a little bit, and then doing it again, just to kind of make that hole there. All right, that's nice and overly exaggerated. Now I'm just going to kind of smooth it out, and then do it one more time, but nice and small. Okay. Now that's still a little over exaggerated, but I can kind of smooth that out now, and I will make that work. Alright, so I'm just going to kind of pinch along here again, smooth out. This is where maybe using the flatten brush for certain things would be nice. So I'm going to switch to the flatten brush and just kind of flatten out the areas that I want flat, like this. And then I'll smooth it out some more. And the front and back is looking pretty nice. I kind of like the shape we have here now. Maybe over here though, we could flatten this out a little bit by switching to our flatten brush. Kind of just working on a few of these areas, maybe pinching the edge here some more, smoothing it out. All right, along the top there as well, and then pinching it along the bottom some more too. Areas where it should be a little tighter, making it tighter. Just kind of where the fabric should be pulled a little bit more tight. That's all we're doing right now. All right, and that looks to be pretty good. So let's do a little bit more of the details now. I think maybe just give this a little bit of work here. Holding Control, kind of pulling that back. Going back to X and adding a little more detail. We can make our strength a little bit shallower in sculpting here. And then kind of cut that back a little bit, holding Control, and smooth that out. All right, a little bit more in here. Let's add a little bit more detail in here. Okay. think I need to make my brush a little bit bigger, my strength a little bit stronger. I just kind of want to give it that overhanging sort of pillow look. Right in there. Smooth it out. And then down in here, we want to crease it a little bit more. Kind of give it that circle-like crease, and then we can smooth it and pinch it. All right, gonna pinch around and smooth it out. If you ever want to like erase something, you just pretty much smooth it out, and then it will look much better. And you can go ahead and try another draw or sculpt on it at that point. All right, just kind of filling out these corners a little bit, but that looks to be pretty good. I think I'll just pinch it now, like so, and then kind of smooth it out, like so. Maybe pinch a little bit more over here, and smooth. Okay, so that is the base mesh. And now we're going to do some of the more details. So let me quick check how this is looking in object mode. It's looking pretty good. We could possibly bring them in just a little bit tighter here by going like 7.5, bringing these edges in just a little bit tighter. Maybe evening a little bit more. Let's go 7. Okay. And then in sculpt mode, I might pinch these edges in a little tighter here as well. So that edge and that edge right along there. You know what? I want to turn off the X for this. It was kind of okay for some of the other things, but for this I want it off now. All right, and you can kind of just look straight down it and see where it's kind of sticking out, and that's going to make the gap a little bit bigger in the array modifier. So then we can kind of smooth it back in those areas. Look straight down it. But that looks pretty good. So for some of the details now, I'm going to go to our crease brush. Actually, I like the crease a lot for this. And just along like these seams, we're going to want to add some creases. So you don't want too much strength, and you're just going to be a little bit more strength, but not too much. You're just going to be kind of coming along and doing a lot of those little micro kind of pulls at the fabric here. So right along here, you're going to kind of come along and just give the different angles, kind of pinching the fabric in. And it won't look necessarily great at first, but once we kind of give it some work, we can make them look better, and we can kind of erase the ones that we just don't end up liking. So kind of creasing that whole thing a little bit more down the center, like so, and then adding some of those micro creases along the way. All right, cool, not too bad. And then around like the point here, I'm gonna add some creases kind of coming off of it too, where the fabric gets kind of pinched back. All right, not too bad. Then along the bottom here as well, some creases in the fabric. All right, maybe add a little bit more geometry down here by hitting X and going to our draw brush, pinching that off, and then Shift C, adding in a few more creases. Cool. All right, so now once you have a handful of creases like we do here, maybe a few along here, what we're going to do is we're going to switch to our pinch brush. We're going to kind of pinch these creases in. This will make it look a lot more like fabric. All right, so kind of pinch them in a bit along the bottom there as well. Anywhere you put a crease, you're going to want to do some pinching. It will kind of tighten them up, clean them up a little bit, just make them overall look a bit better. Maybe make our strength even a little stronger on our pinch brush, and just pinch all of those creases in a bit, like so. Over there, over there. We can kind of come across a little bit. You can see we're adding some detail over there. All right, and up here as well. Kind of pinching them all nicely. All right, like so. And then we're going to, all right, we could think we could do a little bit more pinching in here, yeah. Then we're going to kind of smooth them in and out. So switching to our smooth brush, turning the strength down a little bit, we can kind of hit the edges of them a little bit, and kind of pick and choose which ones we want to keep, and which ones we want to just kind of fade to be a little less severe looking. So right along here, just kind of picking and choosing, and then kind of fading them out along the edges with the smooth brush can look good. Over here too, maybe doing some more pinching, and yeah, you just kind of play around with it until you get the nice looking creases that you're looking for. I'm gonna go back to Shift C and add a few more along here. Maybe coming that way a little bit. Go in different directions. Then I'm gonna kind of smooth them out a little bit and pinch them. All right, that's looking pretty good. And I'm just going to continue doing this along here with some creases along here in the cloth, kind of coming up from the bottom here and along the edges here. But I'm not going to show the whole any more of this process at this point, just because you guys get the idea, and it'll take a little bit of time before I'm completely satisfied with the sculpting. So I'm going to continue doing this, and I'll catch back with you guys as soon as I'm finished up these details. Alright, so I just kind of finished off the rest of the couch with some more creases, and as you can see, it looks a little bit repeated because of the ray modifier, but for our shot, most of it's not going to even be too visible, so I'm not overly concerned about it. Also, you can add, you can apply the ray modifier and then kind of smooth out more of those or whatnot if you're worried about sort of repetitiveness in your shot, but for this, I don't think it looks too bad. Also, you could smooth out some more of these creases if you thought they were a little too harsh. Maybe they are a little bit, but usually, in my experience, the sculpting ends up showing up less than you really expect it in the render. So a little bit more than you think you might need might be good. All right, so with that done, I'm going to go back to object mode here. And I think if I unhide some of our other assets, I think the couch might be a little small once it's sculpted like this. So I'm going to scale it along the Z a little bit and along the X-axis a little bit. Not too much, but just a little bit, like so. All right, and that's looking pretty good. If I go to camera view, you can see it right there, and that should work. So I'm going to go back to object mode here. I'm going to go ahead and hide a few of these objects again. And to finish off the couch, we need to do the ends. So this I did separately just because it's easier to kind of sculpt around them. So I'm going to go ahead and just drop in another cube here. I'm going to tab into edit mode and pull it up along that the Z-axis, one click, holding control. And then I'm going to scale it along the Y-axis, something like so. And then scale along Z, like that. And we can scale along the X to be approximately the right shape here. Pull it out a little bit more, like that. And we can scale it down a little bit along the Z-axis, a little bit more along the X maybe, right around there. And that will work. So I'm going to tab into edit mode, and I'm going to give this a few cuts on both directions, like so. So we have a little bit of geometry here to work with. And then I believe I want to cut it a little bit. Well, I think I can just leave it like that, and that should work. All right, now I want to give it an array modifier just like the other one, so we have it over there. So I'm going to give it an array modifier, pull it over here, give it a 0 on the X there, and just pull it over until it reaches the end nicely. Right about there, 11.1 in my case. And all right, so we can do a little bit of sculpting on this now by giving it an multi-resolution modifier, applying it, whoops, not applying it, subdividing it. So I have it right here. Subdivide it 5 times again, and then we can go ahead and do the sculpting on this. So yeah, I'm going to switch to Sculpt Mode. I'm going to switch to my Sculpt Draw Brush, go to Top View, and I'm going to first start off by adding the geometry along the edges like I want, like so, along this edge here, just kind of shaping out the way I want it to look. Along the bottom here a bit. Okay, that's looking already pretty nice in the shape, as far as shape goes. Alright, there and there. I can turn the symmetry lock on X, this will help a little bit. And then I'm going to give it smooth shading as well in object mode here. Okay, then back into sculpting. And now I'm just going to smooth out the edges here. Let me make that even stronger. Smooth them out on top as well, and kind of pinch the edges in also to kind of square this off. Smooth and pinch. All right, along the bottom there as well, and then pinch it in a little bit more. All right, so it's looking pretty good. Just kind of sculpting it back now, and you can see we have a pretty good shape. Check out on the other side in object mode here. All right, after doing some sculpting, it looks like it's gotten moved a bit, so you might have to reposition that. But okay. So we can do a little bit of details on this too once you're happy with the main shape, which I feel like the main shape is not too bad. Maybe I'll pinch it a little bit more across the front there a little bit, along the side here a little bit, and smooth out some of those points a little bit too. Maybe pull out those corners a little bit with my Sculpt draw brush up in front there as well, and then smooth it out and pinch it. Okay. So then for some of the details on this, it's going to be the same process, just a little less, because this kind of holds shape a little bit more, I think, than kind of the more cushions. This is usually a little harder surface on a couch, but there's still kind of fabric wrapped around it. So you can go ahead and give it some fabric creases by going Shift-C and doing sort of the same thing along here, and make it a little less strong, and adding in some creases. Alright, this is looking not super great. Alright, I need to make the strength a little stronger. Cool. Adding in some creases in certain areas. This is looking a little low res, but I'm just going to go ahead and smooth it a bit. Alright, and I'm going to go with my Sculpt draw brush because that might give it. Alright, yeah, just draw some of these creases in a little bit here. Pull these corners out a little bit more. Right, and we're going to smooth some of these back. I think our smooth brush is overly strong. And now I can kind of smooth these creases a little bit, and then pinch them a bit more. Okay, and a little bit more smoothing. All right. I think adding a little bit more to the corners of this would be good. So just sculpting that out a little bit, and then smoothing it back and pinching it. Anywhere it ends up looking a little messed up, it just needs to be smoothed a bit. But alright, back into my draw brush, add a little bit of a crease in the center there. Smooth that down a little bit. Okay, this is looking pretty good. Back to my draw brush. A few creases along here maybe. This is kind of the main corner right there. Just making sure that it kind of holds its form. Pinching that and smoothing it in. Alright. Cool. So that's the thing with sculpting, is you can't really go wrong, because the more sort of organic sculpting you do, the more natural it often looks, unless you're trying to go for a square shape and you're going, you know, a little crazy on the rounded edges or something. But for the most part, you can, I'm just kind of pinching these creases in there a little bit. For the most part, you can kind of always come back by smoothing and adding more geometry to the scene. So go ahead and experiment with some cool creases and stuff, and you might like what you see. If you don't, you can always smooth it out. All right, so that's looking okay there. Along the bottom here, I can quick sculpt some sort of creases along here, just like so. Along here, and along the corner here, kind of filling out that bottom corner there a little bit. And then just a few creases along the sides. All right, pinch them in nice and like a fabric would look like. And then kind of smooth out, especially the areas that look kind of low res. You could always add another subdivision on this one if you wanted to. I'm going to keep it lower res though and not do that. Looks like I need a little bit of geometry down there at the bottom. All right. And that looks okay. A little bit along the edges here too, maybe, just to kind of fill out a little bit more details. These can be a little bit softer though. And then I'll just pinch them in nice and tight. Smooth that out a little bit. And we should be good to go. Maybe a few little creases along here would be kind of cool looking. Pinch them a bit. And smooth them in a bit. Alright, that looks nice. So there we have the finished couch. Alright, this needs to be tweaked again a little bit. Right around there. It looks pretty good. It'll look even better once it's rendered. So, with that said, I still think that maybe this couch actually could use... It's kind of hard to quit sculpting because you always see little things that could be added, but I still feel like this could be creased in here a little bit more, maybe. So maybe just do a little bit more creasing back in there, a little bit of smoothing, a little bit of pinching, a little bit more smoothing because we're having a little bit of mesh intersecting there. All right. Okay. Yeah, I'm not going to tweak it anymore, but it's looking pretty good. So there's our couch. Now, there's another sort of cushion over in the corner here that we'll work on. And this is going to be, I think their couches, let me see here. I think these need to be scaled along the x-axis a little bit and pulled back. Yeah, something like that. Looks good. You can see it's kind of coming out the back here a little bit. We can move it in just slightly. Scale it along the x just slightly. It's okay if it pokes through a little bit. You won't see that in our render at all. So now this is going to be sort of that cushion that is sitting in the corner window of the these doors here. And this is kind of a fun little sculpting project as well. Again, we're going to start with a cube. So just place the cursor there and Shift A, add in a cube. I'm going to tab in edit mode and pull it up, holding Control. I'll scale it along the Shift Z again, like that. And then I'll kind of scale it down. I'll actually just grab that top face and kind of pull it down. And now I'm going to kind of angle it how I want the sort of the weight of it to be shifted. Basically, it's kind of indented here where someone would sit on it, and then there's kind of more material back in the corner. So I'm going to kind of rotate this by double tapping R and getting it sort of in the general area that we want it to be. And I'm going to grab it and kind of pull it in a bit. So we kind of have our rough box shape here. Now I'm going to add some more geometry with a cut there, a few cuts there, and a few cuts this ways. Just Control R, dropping in a few cuts. All right, something like that looks good, and we're ready to sculpt it. So smooth shading, add in your multi-resolution modifier, give it about 5 subdivisions again, and jump into Sculpt mode. So here we can grab our Sculpt Draw brush, or again, the shortcut is X on your keyboard, and we can start sculpting. So I'm just going to kind of go crazy right off the bat and do the rough shape. So for here, we really don't need any mirroring at the time. I'm just going to hold Control, kind of put the indent of someone's rear end maybe sitting on the cushion here, and then I'm going to go ahead and kind of add geometry around, filling it out, making it more round like a cushion might be. Sort of in the corners there, filling out. If I hit 5, all right, I already am in perspective mode. Just kind of filling out around the edges. You could hide the walls if you wanted, but I kind of like seeing how far to go. So it's not too big of a deal for me right now. Now I'm going to hold Control and kind of cut back the areas I don't want so much mesh. This is kind of like a beanbag or something. So you can kind of make it more round, obviously, than the couch. And it's going to look good. There are still some sort of seams, though, where the fabric comes together and it's a little bit of a pinch. So, for example, right here, I might pinch it a little bit, and I can smooth it out some more. Turn the strength up on my smoothing brush a little bit. Then we'll go back to sculpting and kind of round off some of these corners. So right now, it's looking a little rough, but that's what the smooth brush is for. We want the strength to be real nice and high in it right now. All right, just kind of getting our box shape for this big cushion. And switching to Sculpt mode again. Just kind of filling out, rounding it out a bit. Looking good. And smoothing it all together. All right, this corner needs to kind of be more rounded, I think. Sometimes it's easier just to go Control and cut away at the mesh instead of trying to smooth it. Smoothing can take a bit longer. All right. And then we need a little bit more weight on bottom. So it, you know, if it's a beanbag or something, obviously it all kind of falls to the bottom. Can't really see in here too well. Maybe go Z so I can see through my mesh. Adding just along the corners there and smoothing that out a bit. All right. That's looking, well, it's not looking great, but it's getting there. So I'm going to smooth it some more. And then I'm going to start really kind of shaping it the way I want it. So there's kind of a seam that's going to come along here. So I'm going to double tap X and draw that out. Sort of a fabric seam along here, a fabric seam along here, and then it kind of comes around there as well. And then it kind of comes to a point back here, and then it kind of comes. So it's basically a square fabric that is filled with beanbags, so it falls into a kind of a round shape. But with these sort of lined up here, it'll kind of give us an idea of how we want to sculpt it. Now there's going to be kind of a cutout in here where the weight of somebody sitting has kind of formed it. So we're going to kind of cut out there by holding Control on our sculpt brush. And now we can kind of add some more back there, smooth that out. Now that we have those kind of cutout marks, we can kind of pinch them a bit to kind of get the form in the right place. And now we can kind of smooth out. Smooth and pinch. All right, and that's definitely looking better. Kind of cutting away at the corners still a little bit here. Up there somewhat too. Going to our sculpt brush, kind of cutting away at the mesh some more. Right. It's looking nice. I think I still have too much material back here, so I'm going to kind of cut away at this some more. Sometimes you just kind of have to sit back and look at it and be like, I don't think that looks right. All right. This still has a little bit too much material back there. Kind of cut it back and smooth it out. All right. Let's see what that's kind of looking like as a shape from our camera view. Not too terrible. I want to kind of scale along the y-axis or x-axis a little bit maybe, and then I kind of want to flatten out the bottom of it here because it's sitting on a floor. You wouldn't have these sort of shapes. So I'm going to double tap X, or just single tap it. I guess you don't have to double tap. Go to my sculpt brush and kind of flatten out the bottom here all the way around like so. Smooth it out. Maybe pinch it along the bottom there. Adding in a little bit more right there. Okay, smooth it out. And then from the bottom here, we can go Z, and we can choose our flat brush. And we can just kind of flatten out the whole bottom of it there a bit. All right, that's looking pretty good. The whole mesh might need to come down a little bit, so I might scale it up and pull it down a little bit. Okay, so just a little bit more rounding, I think, would be good. And we can do a little bit of details on this then, and then we can call it good. So I'm going to continue rounding it out a bit in all these different areas, smoothing it mostly, and then kind of smooth this over. All right. This area here needs a little bit more material. And then smoothing it back, pinching it along the base a bit. All right. Cool. Maybe giving it the whole object just a little bit of rotation now would give it on the Z-axis here. Give it a nice little bit of randomness. Keeping it looking, from looking too square. And now I'm going to do a little bit more of the detailed sculpting. Now that I'm pretty happy with the overall shape of it, I might still take this area back bit. But now that I'm pretty happy with the overall shape of it, I'm going to just single tap X. I don't know why I keep thinking double tap, but I don't have to. It's just a single tap. I'm going to kind of sculpt in some of the details. So this is, like I said, kind of one of the areas here, one of the areas there, kind of a point back here where it comes to. And once you kind of have your seams worked out a bit, there's going to be kind of a seam back here too that can kind of be pinched. All right, that seam there, that seam along there, seam along there, and a seam along there. I can kind of add in some detail sculpting now. So I'm going to switch to my crease brush, and using my sculpt brush as well, add some creases along these seams. Alright, so just holding kind of control for some of them, and then adding for others. We're going to add some of those creases along these edges, along the points here. You kind of want to add some of the fabric creases, and then along, well, pretty much anywhere the fabric is kind of pinched in, like someone was sitting there, you want to add some of those creases along those points up here, and then really along here where someone would have sat, you're going to get some creases kind of pinching it in a bit. So kind of all around here, giving it a different size sometimes to kind of put those creases in there. It's looking pretty good. All right, definitely changing the scale makes it look nice, and then kind of pinching them. All right, like so. Pinching all the creases we added in here a bit. Nice. Maybe a few kind of along here. I might go Shift C for these and just kind of holding control for some of them, not for others. So some are kind of sticking out, some are not. And then I want to definitely smooth these in and out in areas, and then pinch the ones that I like to kind of keep them. All right. That looks pretty good. And smooth some of these out. I don't think these got pinched over here. So kind of pinch them in, smooth the other areas out. And that is our basic sculpt. So it's looking pretty good in camera view here. Maybe a little bit more obvious sculpts would be good in here and here. Just a little bit more, maybe a little bigger ones. Kind of breaking up that fabric a little bit, then pinching it and smoothing it. Will look pretty good. So that will do it for that cushion here. You don't really have to work on the sculpting details of areas that the camera won't see in this case. And then maybe a little bit along here as well, kind of having the fabric kind of pile up a little bit, like it's bulging a little bit here. So we'll put a few creases along this ways, not too many. And again, different sizes, looks nice. All right, we'll kind of smooth these out. Kind of decide on a few that we like, that we want to keep more visible. And then we'll kind of smooth everything else out. All right, maybe pinch this one a little bit. Maybe add in another one just kind of down here. Pinch that one too, and smooth them out. All right, so you can see how that kind of adds in some details and looks kind of good. We'll smooth these, we'll pinch them, vice versa. All right, so you guys get the idea now, and I feel like this is looking, whoops, I want to pinch that, and kind of smooth it out. All right, so I feel like you guys kind of get the gist now, and that's probably enough sculpting for this. So I'll leave it there, and we'll move on to the last little bit of sculpting, which is going to be some cushions for our couches. Alright, so to finish up this part of the tutorial, we just need to add a few cushions. So I'm going to go ahead and place my cursor over on the couch here, Shift A, add in a cube. I'm going to scale this down along the Z-axis, and then just scale it down in general a bit. Alright, something like that. I'm going to tab into Edit Mode, and I'm going to go Control R, add 2 cuts. I'm going to scale these cuts down along the Z-axis a bit. I'm going to scale them along the Shift Z to kind of give them that, that angled sort of look. In top view now, I'm going to tab. Alright, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to add a few cuts this ways. We'll go ahead and add 3, and I'll add 3 this ways as well. Now I'm going to sort of pull in these edges on both sides. I'm going to go ahead and turn proportional editing on, and it's on sharp. That should work okay. I'm going to grab these edges on both sides, and I'm going to scale on the Shift Z to kind of give it that tighter sort of cushion look, but pulling it in a little bit more. Alright, that's looking pretty good. We'll give it smooth shading. And now I'm going to go ahead and give it a little bit of height along the surface. I'm going to scale this along the Z as well by pulling that up. Alright, that's looking pretty good. Now I can scale it along the Z as a whole just to kind of take that down a little bit more. And there we have sort of a basic cushion look. So I'm going to go ahead and give this the same multi-resolution modifier with a handful of subdivisions. And we'll do some sculpting real quick on it, and we'll be good to go. Give it one more subdivision there. Switch to Sculpt Mode. And for this, we can turn on the mirror access on pretty much all of these to speed up the workflow. So I'm going to first go to Sculpt, kind of point these corners a little bit more, the way I like them, like so. Kind of smooth them out a little bit. That's already looking better. And then I'm going to kind of just draw along the edges here, smoothing it out. Turn my brush strength down a little bit for this. Right. Kind of working on those seams a little bit. It's looking pretty good. Let's go ahead and make these a little pointier in the corners. And then we can kind of pinch it as well. Alright, that's looking pretty good. And now I'm just going to make it a little bit bigger still with the draw brush here. Alright. That's looking good. I kind of smooth out some of these areas. Draw in some other areas. Alright. Now I'm going to do some of the finer details, and this will be all we need to do. So I'm going to kind of cut in, holding Control on my Sculpt draw brush, like I was doing before. I need to make my strength a bit stronger for this. And I'm going to hold Control. Maybe not quite so strong. I'm going to hold Control and just start adding in those seams. Not the seams, but more the creases, I should say. And it looks like we might want one more subdivision, so we'll go ahead and do that. And just kind of adding in those seams. My strength is a little strong still. And then hit Shift C, and we can try adding some creases as well, especially in the corners. That's where these have a lot of seams. Right? It's looking a little messy, so I'll have to do some smoothing to fix these. But yeah, some of the creases will work. And then just Shift C, a few more creases along the edges here, smoothing out the ones that don't look super hot. And then Shift C, making our brush a little smaller. A few more creases, kind of coming across there. We'll pinch some of them by hitting P, kind of pinching them, smoothing them in. Alright. Some of these need some smoothing, but you get the idea. And Shift C, just add a few more creases. I'm going to turn off the symmetry lock on some of those because it's getting a little too much. Shift C, kind of a crease in here. Pinch that crease, smooth it in a little bit. Alright, a little bit more along here, and we'll be good to go, I think. For these, I want to draw them in a little bit. So I'm just going to kind of draw in some of these creases along here. Alright, nice and exaggerated so we can kind of pinch them, really kind of standing out nicely, and then we can smooth them in so we don't want them quite as visible. All right. And then I'm just kind of meeting them in the middle there. We can pinch that, do some basic smoothing. And that's looking okay. Some of the time it looks a little messy, and you just kind of have to smooth it out and start over. But yeah, in general, I think it's looking pretty good. A little bit more in the middle here, kind of coming up, kind of a little bit more towards the center of the cushion. Some of these, we can kind of pinch these then, and fade them in and out. Cool. All right, I think some of these could be a little bit more pinched, but that should, fingers crossed, do it. You can go ahead and smooth out any of the areas that you think look a little too much, but I think I'm pretty happy with that. So now I'm going to kind of place it, grabbing it over in the corner here, double tapping R, kind of rotating it. And once you have it in place, you can go ahead and also add in some sculpting details. But I'm going to scale it up a little bit, drop it back in the corner there, drop it down a little bit, like so. And that's looking, pretty good. Pull it away from the corner a little bit more, like that. Nice. Now I'll duplicate it one more time. We'll make another one here. I'll scale this one along the Z a little bit, and along the Y, or X axis. Hitting X, or Y. Alright. Twice to kind of go along the axis. So I hit it twice, and you can kind of go along the object's axis there. A little tip. Alright, so rotate along the Z, pull it out and over, and then give this one a little bit of rotation to look different. It's not sitting perfect. Okay, cool. We can do a little bit of sculpting to make this one different, but in general, that's going to wrap up this tutorial. So I'm going to kind of sculpt the corners up a little higher. Let's turn off some of the mirroring. I just want the Y, not the X there. So kind of, yeah, grab those, smooth them out a little bit. Speaking about grab, and I haven't mentioned yet, you can use the grab brush a bit too, and this was a little helpful for me. Is just kind of grabbing those corners and pulling them. Sometimes if you want to just pull something a certain way, it's easier just to kind of grab it and pull it in that place. And you can kind of pull it back and tip it down a little bit. You can get some really nice results using the grab brush. All right. You can even kind of create some creases using the grab brush by grabbing and pulling like fabric down a little bit. And you naturally get some of those creases, which can look kind of cool as well. All right, that looks pretty good. I'll save my project. And maybe smooth a little bit more on this. Also, I didn't mention, but you can use the grab brush on this. And I did a little bit for mine as well. Just hitting G for the grab brush. Grabbing that object, obviously, and going into sculpt mode. And then kind of grabbing some of the fabric and pulling it down. You can get a little bit more of a realistic result of the fabric kind of sagging a little bit. And then you also get some of those creases that look kind of cool. If I go in a little closer and do it, you can see the creases I'm talking about. But that will do it. So I hope you guys enjoyed this part of the tutorial. And before I leave you, let's quick duplicate. Let's grab that object by right-clicking it, smoothing this a little bit more. Now let's quick duplicate this cushion over to our window. I'm just going to Shift D, grab it. We'll just pull it over in 3D space to our pillow here, and add this cushion to this beanbag as another little bit of detail. So I'm just going to kind of comfortably place that cushion in that beanbag there, like so. If we go to camera view, that looks pretty nice. And just another little bit of detail. All right, so that's going to wrap up. I'm going to go ahead and hit Option H. Most of this tutorial, actually the last bit of geometry I need to add is for the next part, when we focus on the lighting, we're going to need to kind of wall off some of these areas. so the lighting is not coming from the wrong angles. So to do that, I'm going to quick finish off the modeling here by pulling out, whoops, don't want proportional editing on in this case. Turn that off. Pulling out our walls a bit in the areas that we need to, of course. Let's grab that edge loop there by alt-clicking it. Pull that out. And let's grab this whole edge loop here by alt-clicking it and pulling that up. And there's kind of an upstairs here. So I'm going to extrude this and keep it going up a bit. And then I'm going to extrude it and come out for the ceiling. So this is areas that I'm not going to focus on details at all because it's not really important. Instead, I'm just doing it to kind of block the lighting. So you don't have to be picky at all in this case. I'm just grabbing this edge here and I'll unselect this edge here. Let's just go to vertices select and do it because it's a little easier. Unselect that vertice there. And for these edges, I'm just going to extrude this wall out. Following that to the corner there. Cool. This can come out all the way. And so can this. Let's just grab everything in the end there. Notch you. And extrude this again to the end there. Alright. Same with this wall here. Actually, in this case, I'll just grab this and extrude it downward. That won't quite work. Just extrude it to that second floor there. So it blocks off all the light. We might actually need to grab it and pull it out. Oops, it's not connected over there. So grab that vertice as well. I can't really see what's going on back there. It might just be easier to grab this edge and extrude it out like so. Okay, but basically we're just making it a shell, so light isn't coming in from every different angle. And as you may have guessed, we also need to wall off this back wall. So I'm just going to grab this bottom wall here, Shift D, extrude it upwards. So we are completely blocked from the light. If I hit 5, kind of zoom in, you can see we have an inside, but all the walls are blocked off. Now the one thing that you might want to do to add a little bit of detail in lighting and also reflections is add just a few more windows in a few different areas. So you could kind of follow the reference images if you wanted to finish this exactly the way the house is actually constructed, or you could just kind of throw a few windows in here and there, like I did, to get some results real quick. All right, so I'm just going to drop a cut in over here, and a cut in over here, and this is going to be just a basic window. I'm going to grab these edges here, unselect that there, unselect that there too, I guess, and we'll just pull these down. And this will be a basic window right here. Grab this edge and pull it in a little tighter for a smaller window. Actually, maybe we'll do a double window like we have over here. So just pull it in a bit. Okay. And it looks like we might have to scale these along the Z to 0 just to straighten them out. All right, look like they're good. And I'm going to grab these two edge faces, delete the faces. Actually, before I delete them, I'm going to extrude them outwards so we have a little bit of a window frame. And then I'll delete the faces. And so we have window there. And another little window over here was nice. So go ahead and Control R. Let's just grab that face. Control I, hide everything else. And then Control R. I'm going to put a little bit of window situation over here. So we're going to drop a cut in there, drop a cut in there. Something like that. This one might need to come up a little bit for the proper height. Like so. And this will be kind of a double pane window too, I guess. Doesn't really matter. But yeah. Depending on how much light you want to let in. Okay, so I'll grab that face, extrude it outwards, X, and delete the face. So to fill in these windows in, I'm just going to quick duplicate some that we already have here. So I'll grab these over here. Alright, Shift D, pull them over, rotate 90 degrees minus along the Z axis to line them up in the right orientation there. pull them back against the wall, and then I'm going to hit period on my number pad to kind of zoom in over here, and then 3 to get into side view. And I'm just going to hit G, kind of face them in there, scale them along the y-axis, grab along the y, and scale them along the z-axis, grab along the y, or grab along the z, and just place them in there. Alright, good for that. We'll Shift D, rotate them minus 90 along the z-axis again, grab them along the z here, and they're kind of back there a little bit. I'm going to pull them in a bit, pull them over to the side here, and just stick them in the window again. So grab along the Shift Y-axis, so we're moving them right along there, and scale them along the Z-axis. Grab along the Z-axis until they fit nicely. They don't have to be perfect because it's not even visible, it's just for the light to kind of pour through. Alright, that's close enough. Scale on the Y a little bit, or the X. I'm sorry. You guys get the idea. And there you have it. So there's also one window. Let me just jump in our house here from the upstairs that kind of lets some nice light in that I'm going to kind of cut out here. So I'm going to unhide it with Option H. And it's basically this area here. So I'm just going to use this, and I'm going to inset it a bit. I'll kind of pull it over here a bit. Scale along the Z maybe. Extrude it out, and then X, delete that face. Let's grab a window from down here. Shift D, grab along the Z, pull it up. We don't need the array modifier for this because this is going to be a single. We'll pull it over, grab along the Y until it's right in the wall there. Grab along the X until it's nice and centered there. I'll tab in edit mode and I'll just scale it up to size. Grab along the Z, and that will work. Okay, so we have all of our windows set up now for our lighting. So we're ready for the last part, which is going to be materials and lighting, as you guys might have guessed. And hopefully we can fit that into one part. But that's going to wrap up this part of the tutorial series, guys. I hope you're enjoying yourselves. We're done with the modeling, so yay, give yourself a pat in the back. The funnest part is about to come, and that is the lighting and rendering. So I'm going to leave you guys here, and I'll be back in the next part. So bye.